Nick Reiner is attracting public attention in a way that makes many pause and question. Right now, a wave of sympathy is spreading, with many suggesting he should be spared the trial and set free. But a closer look reveals a more complex picture. Behind the shared images and stories, there are indications that this may be a carefully calculated performance, a portrayal by someone who has mistakenly positioned themselves as the victim. From another perspective, some argue that this isn't just spontaneous emotion, but a sophisticated manipulation of public opinion. I've witnessed similar scenarios before. Having observed legal cases and human behavior in detention for many years, I understand that not everything we see reflects the whole truth. Some performances may seem convincing, but carry inherent risks if the public blindly believes them. So where does the line lie between genuine empathy and being emotionally manipulated? And which direction is Nick Reiner's story really heading? These are things we need to consider critically before drawing any conclusions. Nick Reiner is at the center of one of the most sensational cases in Los Angeles. He is currently charged with direct involvement in the deaths of his parents, Rob and Michelle Reiner. The latest images from the scene show police have sealed off the entire area, deployed a large force, and are closely monitoring Nick's every move. Video footage of him appearing at a convenience store just hours before his arrest has led the community to closely follow his every action, from his gaze to his gestures, as if witnessing every moment of a crime unfolding. And the case is not just a legal event, but has become a complex story about personality and mental health. Some sources suggest Nick may not have been fully aware of his actions, while others assert that he was fully aware of what happened. This sparked a heated public debate. The public was both shocked and concerned about how the information was being conveyed, while legal experts analyzed every detail to understand the nature of the incident. Investigators and reporters from Fox Nation, TMZ, and many other media outlets continuously monitored and analyzed every image and detail from the crime scene video to decipher Nick's behavior and attitude. Police set up barricades and sealed off the area, ensuring strict security, while every movement of Nick and the reactions of the officers were scrutinized, becoming crucial visual evidence in the investigation. The case also highlighted the debate surrounding mental health and criminal responsibility. Some supporters of Nick emphasized that medications or mental conditions could have affected his perception, while others warned that exploiting this factor as an excuse could distort the truth. The tension between sympathy and justice fuels ongoing public debate, creating a complex and chilling picture of the case. Nick Reiner's story continues to unfold, with each new detail revealed making it one of the most talked about legal and media stories today. From behavioral analyses and crime scene images to testimonies and legal evidence, every piece of information is closely monitored by the community and the media. This is not just a crime case, but also a testament to the power of public opinion, media attention, and the profound impact of unexpected events on the community. Recently, a new interpretation has emerged surrounding Nick Reiner. People are beginning to say that what he did was merely a consequence of experimenting with various substances, that drugs were the real cause of the crimes. According to this narrative, Nick's personal responsibility seems to be obscured, as if everything were just an unfortunate accident caused by chemicals in his body. But there's another perspective, coming from those who are all too familiar with the world behind bars. Throughout their years in that environment, they've witnessed all kinds of people, all kinds of dependents, all kinds of tired eyes from lack of sleep, and bodies ravaged by stimulants. Drugs, in various forms, had appeared daily, repeatedly over the years. Some people use far larger doses than Nick was accused of. Some spiral downwards, losing control, collapsing both mentally and physically. But the remarkable thing is, most of them didn't turn into murderers. didn't sneak into their relatives' bedrooms and attack them while they were asleep. That's what makes the argument, "it's all the drugs," so simplistic. Stimulants can weaken boundaries. They can push a person beyond normal limits. But they rarely create violence out of nothing. They don't spontaneously generate a monster. What they do is give courage, remove the last barrier so that something already present inside can have a chance to emerge. Now another image is painted. Nick Reiner as a lost child in prison, bewildered, confused, not even knowing where he is or why he's there. For those who have witnessed hundreds, even thousands of faces in prison cells and courtrooms, that image is not unfamiliar. The feigned confusion, the innocent gaze, the appearance of not understanding what was happening, all were performances that had been repeated too many times. It wasn't a loss, nor was it a breakdown. It was a performance used as a way to evade responsibility. The reality is, Nick's current detention environment is far from what many imagine. The county jail, where he awaits trial, almost completely prohibits access to stimulants. If it is, it's in extremely rare cases. This means Nick most likely has been forced to sober up after a long period of dependence, and that sobriety is not pleasant. It triggers a dramatic fall, a form of forced withdrawal, causing mental turmoil and violent physical resistance. Now, many people mistake that state for innocence, but in reality, it was simply a consequence of breaking away from an old way of life, a life centered around euphoria, around chasing the next dose day after day for years on end. When those substances disappeared, the distorted version of the person who had existed thanks to them began to crumble. And most importantly, no one immediately develops the intention to harm others just by snorting cocaine or using stimulants. Initially, the feeling is always euphoric, exhilarating, full of energy. Everything seems lighter and more joyful. Violence doesn't appear from that first moment. It only surfaces when there's already a dark, smoldering undercurrent waiting for the right moment to erupt. In this story, and the drugs weren't the sole cause. They were merely the spark that ignited something already present. Imagine a familiar scene from a glamorous Hollywood movie. Warm yellow lights, incessant music, clinking glasses, bursts of laughter. Parties where fame and excitement intertwine, where everyone exudes an almost unreal confidence. That's the world Nick once lived in, surrounded by famous names, loud music, and a feeling of belonging. In that moment, everything felt good. Dopamine surged, speech flowed, smiles were more natural than ever. You talked, laughed, felt radiant. But that euphoria didn't last. After sleepless nights, when the body was exhausted and the mind began to wear down, something else crept in. Paranoia. At first it was mild, just a vague feeling of unease. Then gradually, you began to notice every glance, every voice, at every seemingly harmless remark. A comment from his father suddenly sounded off. A fleeting glance from someone became suspicious. His mind began to distort everything. Wait, what are they saying behind my back? Are they plotting something? Unbeknownst to him, everyone around him had become a threat. Every word sounded like a trap. Anxiety grew, piling up until the line between reality and imagination completely blurred. Now imagine that state of mind in a room full of celebrities, A-list, B-list, familiar faces everywhere. Amidst the crowd, Nick paced back and forth, muttering to himself, convinced that all eyes were on him. The restlessness quickly turned into suspicion. He began saying strange things, reacting defensively, making those around him feel awkward without understanding why. And it all unfolded at a lavish Christmas party hosted by Conan O'Brien, one of the most famous late-night talk shows. It was the kind of chaos that only arises when years of drug abuse, fame, and delusions clash head-on with reality. That version of Nick finally couldn't hold on any longer. It started with anxiety and suspicion, then spiraled into complete paranoia. Ironically, in reality, no one had plotted against or harmed him that night. But in Nick's mind, everything spiraled out of control. And when paranoia took over, things happened so quickly. In the end, he did the unimaginable, taking the lives of his own parents, Rob and Michelle. Those who have witnessed drug-induced psychosis know how terrifying it is. But they also understand one thing: not everyone in that state becomes a murderer. Many people use drugs more heavily, for longer periods, but never harm anyone. Therefore, saying it's just the drugs isn't enough. Now, Nick sits there, looking confused, saying he doesn't know where he is, doesn't understand what happened. But the reality is, he's been on rehab for weeks. Forced to leave everything he was dependent on, he's facing sobriety for the first time in a very long time. Reality is returning slowly, painfully, week after week. Along with that comes guilt, the inevitable. The realization that he took the lives of two people gave him everything. The drugs didn't create the monster. They only removed the last barrier, giving the green light for something already inside to surface. The harsh truth is this: crime doesn't spontaneously arise from drugs. It stems from a deep, simmering breakdown. Drugs didn't create that darkness. They only allowed it to emerge into the light. And now Nick has to face it. No more hiding, no more innocent act. Only the truth remains and responsibility for what happened. And now, sober, he's trapped in a small, empty room with nothing but his own thoughts. There's no escape, no Hollywood parties, no alcohol, no noisy conversations to fill the void. Just four cold walls and a mind constantly replaying the same moment, repeating. No switch, no distraction. That prison cell forces him to confront the truth, to look straight at the person he became when chaos consumed everything. And the cruelest part is this: when the addiction is broken, when his mind gradually becomes clear, he finally feels it all. Every second, every minute. No more numbing to shield himself. No more excuses to lull himself into complacency. Only memories and the haunting recollections of what happened. So when he says, "I don't know where I am," the truth is quite different. He knows very well. He is in a kind of hell on earth, a place with no escape, not even in his own mind. The cell is not just a physical confinement, but has become a mental punishment. And that's just the beginning. If he were actually placed in a long-term prison system, things would be far harsher. There, the environment is neither gentle nor tolerant. The elements that once triggered the darkest aspects of his personality still exist. And when those elements encounter a mind that has already crossed the line of no return, the risks become terrifying. This is not an exaggeration, but the stark reality of a harsh system. Don't forget that what he did wasn't a simple outburst. It demonstrated coldness, control, and the ability to inflict harm in a moment when others are completely defenseless. It's not just violence. It leaves a deep mark, something that doesn't disappear just because the iron door closes. And then, everything around him began to crumble. The legal team withdrew. Support gradually disappeared. Family, after all, seemed to have reached its limit. There are points in life when one is forced to acknowledge. No amount of money can repair a deep-seated breakdown. When that decision was made, Nick had no more protection. He stood alone. No more steady income. No more shelter. No one to stand behind him to soothe the reality. And in an environment where everything operates according to unspoken rules, where temptation and danger coexist, it becomes a disturbing mixture. In prison, things don't work like the outside world. There exists a separate economy, silent but persistent. People exchange services, favors, help, not out of kindness, but for survival. Some people cling to anything that can help them forget reality. Once you're in it, life revolves around adapting, finding your footing, and avoiding lurking dangers. For someone carrying so much unresolved instability, with a history of losing control, it's an extremely risky environment. It doesn't take much effort to understand why this worries so many. When support disappears, when responsibility finally has to be confronted, only the true self remains, naked, without disguise. And that's where this story becomes most terrifying, not because of what has happened, but because of what might happen next. And without the right intervention. This is no longer a story about fame, money, or excuses. This is a story about consequences, about confrontation, and about the price to pay when a person slips too far beyond the boundary and cannot turn back. Suddenly, he became extremely cautious, unwilling to be discovered with anything illegal, from cell phones and knives to other dangerous items. To protect himself, he sought out others to hold his belongings for him, paying them for their services. A simple agreement. If caught, the item was theirs, not his. But whatever the outcome, they were paid, sometimes in unusual ways, like bags of methamphetamine or some other favor. In the prison environment, addiction easily resurfaces. Even without money or resources, temptation lurks. It appears in the form of small deals, favors, opportunities for a little profit. And for people like Nick Reiner, who were already unstable, this could quickly become dangerous. There are countless ways to survive within four walls, helping other prisoners, cleaning cells, cooking, bartering. These seemingly simple tasks became a way to maintain power, money, and status within the prison. And Nick, from what people observed, would throw himself into everything, working tirelessly to achieve his goals, whatever they might be. The problem became particularly dangerous when methamphetamine was added. In the prison environment, stimulants were readily available. For someone like Nick, once he gained access, a switch in his mind would flip, paranoia would arise, and sanity would be erased. Add to that the risk of exposure to knives, to other prisoners, into living in close proximity in cramped spaces. Everything created a perfect setup for violent behavior. This wasn't just theory. Nick had proven his capabilities with these elements: methamphetamine, paranoia, and knives, a deadly combination. Any one of these elements alone could cause tragedy, and in prison, all of them were present. Prediction is inevitable. If these conditions continue, he could once again pose a danger. This isn't an unfounded threat, but an assessment based on behavioral patterns. This is the harsh reality in the underworld of prison, where the combination of addiction, mental instability, and access to weapons can lead to repeated tragedy. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video to stay updated on this tense story. Further details will reveal more hidden aspects of Nick Reiner's perilous journey.